What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and I'm here with another episode of Black Fathers Now with my man, Shaun Mosley. This is going to be a really dope episode. He's going to really drop something today that's going to really cause you to think about life a little bit differently, but then expand your horizons. But Shaun, most importantly, is a husband and he's a father of a 4-year-old little girl. He's also the creator of Successful While Parenting podcast, and he's a tech industry veteran. I have to admit, or I have to, also reveal the fact that he's a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. I mean, I know, oh Lord. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is the creator of Black Fathers Now. So no matter what, no matter who comes on here, you always know that the bruh's got this thing. Okay, nah, it's all love. It's all love. We having fun. So I mentioned he's a husband, a father. His wife is actually a physician. So he's married to a physician. They just recently moved. But one of the things we're going to really dive into today is that before their big move, he, his wife, and his 4-year-old little girl took a 2-month sabbatical, vacation, adventure, whatever you want to call it. They took 2 months and went to Asia and just did it. So I really want him to dive in and share with us his experiences, but then also inspire the other brothers to think about life a little bit differently. So fellas, in the Black Fathers Now family, let's welcome my man, Shaun Mosley. What's up, brother?
Nothing much, Mike. Thanks for the warm introduction, man. I feel the love there. Feel it.
You feel the love. Well, that's a good thing. That's what it's all about, man. It's all about love.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing that like drew me to you, and the fact of like you and your platform with Black Fathers Now is changing that paradigm that we have of Black fathers to where it's like, nah, man, we in this together.
That's it.
Together, we gonna support each other. We're gonna do better than our fathers did, and not to say our fathers didn't do well, because our fathers set us up great. Well, most of us, but being able to just go and take it further, man. So thank you for opening up this platform.
Man, no problem. And I appreciate you for coming on and sharing, because you got a lot of insight as well with your Successful While Parenting podcast, as well as your life experiences, man. It's a lot of that really brings value to the table that the brothers could really learn from and take action on. And you said something right there that made me think. You talked about how, we can do things potentially better than the generation before us. Not that they did anything wrong per se, but it's taking that and building upon it. It's kind of the concept of standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Absolutely.
But it also made me think about this concept, and I was thinking about this the other day. Like, we're always looking for a way to create something, to build something, to take something or build it from scratch. But there's not always a lot of communication around passing the baton, right? It's like, how do you take what somebody else is doing and build upon that? How do you take what someone else is doing and go from the third leg to the fourth leg and bring it home, right? How do you add value to what's already there? It's like there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of, conversation around creation, creating, building, starting from scratch, doing your own thing, breaking it, being, charting your own path. But that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation, or another perspective, is how do you then take the baton from somebody else and build upon what they already created?
That's a great question. And it's got me thinking. And I actually recently wrote a blog post to my father saying thank you to him. Very often, it's always about mom. It's always and moms go through hell and high water for their kids and do things your typical rational person will not do.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of times that overshadows what dads do. And I didn't think my dad got enough credit for everything that he set up for us. And when I was able to look back at it, I was able to see what he did well, how he changed. When we were younger, he was a little bit more quick to get mad at us, quick to curse and things like that. But then now I see him with my daughter, and I'm like, who are you?
Wow.
Like you could come in there, put your feet in the couch and make a mess, And he's cool, calm.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, that's growth.
Mm.
That's growth right there. And being able to recognize my father has made that huge growth. Like, I look at him and see what he's done. And I'm like, wow, like anything is possible. Like, he's definitely always been my hero. But being able to look back, I think that's what it is. When we think about creating, we see problems in the current day and age, and we figure, how can I create and solve this problem? But sometimes we also have to be retrospective, either about ourselves or about others that inspire us, and to see, what did they do? How did they overcome? And so becoming a father myself, I'm just like, man, my dad grew up, he didn't have the tools that I had, but yet and still he set me up for success.
Wow. He didn't have the tools you had, yet he still set you up for success. So he might not have had the tools, but what he did was he fostered an environment for those things to manifest, to grow. And now you have the tools. So with your tools, what is it that you're building for your daughter and for the next generation? Or what is it that you're building, with Successful While Parenting, the podcast, or whatever you do out in the world in the tech industry, or with your other impacts or whatnot? It's like, that's a powerful concept, man. It's like, but again, looking back, but then also being retrospective, but then being introspective, right? So it's connecting the dots to what was, but then when you go and become introspective, is looking at what is.
Yep.
And it's like bridging that gap, like becoming that bridge builder between what was and what is. And once we successfully bridge that gap between the past and the present, then I believe building the bridge to the future is one of those foregone conclusions that we're set up properly to do.
Yeah, I think that's entirely correct. And being able to, and I mean, I just want to also call out, I don't want to overshadow one parent over the other. Both
Absolutely.
my parents set up that strong, successful household for me. And being able to look back, I like the way that you said it, being able to look back on what was combined with what is will set us up to look forward and see what can be.
Ooh. You know what? And what's interesting about that, I think what can be is the whole concept of possibility, right? And I think it's a can be when we don't have a strong connection between what was and what is. This is just a thought process. If what was and what is firmly connected, it morphs from what can be to what will be.
Yes.
It's because we can look forward with a level of faith and confidence and perspective on possibilities. And it's no longer I have to dream about it. It's like, no, I have proof based off of what has happened that this is going to happen. All we got to do is just follow the course.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, we can't overstep something real quick. We talked a little bit about your father, but before we jump into the meat of interviews, I always like to have the brothers give shout outs, right? Because again, who are we without our community, without our village, without those that help us to be the best versions of ourselves? So before we jump into more about yourself, give a shout outs to the folks that really help you do what you do on a daily basis, man.
Yeah, definitely. And I gotta also say, this is part of my favorite part of the show, to where it's drawing that light there. So first and foremost, for me, my wife has supported me through so much, being able to see strength in me that I did not see. And my parents, my brothers, like being able to, even though they've always been on the East Coast, I know I have that support. I got my wife's family in Atlanta, and being able to drop my daughter off and get a day to ourselves on the weekend.
Ooh, like, Lord have mercy. That's a blessing.
Man. Yeah. I didn't recognize it when we were in California for 4 years that we just had our daughter. Our daughter was a newborn. She was 3 months. We got out there. No family. It was all us. It was drop her to daycare, go to work, pick her up from daycare, home. And then the weekends, it was all us. So we didn't know what any of like all that was, and we were kind of slow to like find a babysitter for different things.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back and just being with my wife's cousin and then being like, hey, can you watch Desi for a couple hours? We gonna go out? Yeah. And I was like, wait, we could do that.
Look, and it ain't gonna cost you $50. Look, and it ain't gonna cost you $50.
To actually enjoy lunch.
Yes, and enjoy lunch and not be like, dang, I mean, this $30 lunch is gonna cost us $80 because we gotta pay for the freaking babysitters. And it's just like, oh
yeah. I mean, that village, and I mean, also like a lot of that stuff wouldn't have been a lot of the stuff before the trip to Asia, that wouldn't have been possible without our village, without people helping us to get ready to move back, being able to ship some of our personal belongings to my mother-in-law. When we were coming back, my wife was getting ready to work, and I was going to try to figure out what my work situation was going to be. And we were like, oh, crap, we need somebody to watch Desi. We don't have a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to the village, went to grandma's cousins, and was like, hey, what can we do? We need y'all help as we make this transition. And so without the village, man, I don't know where I'd be.
Wow, dude, the way that you explain that really highlights the whole concept of the African parable of it takes a village to raise a child. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a village to raise a child, but again, we're not children, we're grown men, but it still takes a village for us to become the best versions of ourselves. Nothing great was ever created in isolation or on an island. And so, dude, man, that's powerful, man. And I'm gonna tell you, it's funny as you're saying that. That's something that my wife and I struggle with, right? Because she's originally from Los Angeles. I'm originally from Augusta, Georgia, and we live in Knoxville, Tennessee, right? And, our kids were born here where, this is where home is at this current moment. And we have family, we have neighbors, we have fraternity and sorority and church members and all of that kind of stuff. So we have a village that we've built around us, but we don't have our family there. And it's always one of those things where, one of the things we talk about, like growing up, if you were sick, if you're throwing up and peeing and pooping and all that stuff, yeah, you go to grandmama's house. Yeah, man, you can have all kind of hand, foot, and mouth rashes and all that stuff. It's fine. Bring that baby on over to grandmama's house. You were fine. Whereas if now you feel bad about dropping a sick kid off at somebody who's not grandmama or who's not aunt or uncle or whatever's house. And so that concept of village, even though, again, we have a great network of people, we have a great village around us, but there's still this level of comfort that's not all the way there as if you had when, you're at the crib and it's like, hey, mama, yeah, they got all kind of rashes, they contagious, they whatever. I'll bring them by in about 30 minutes, okay? look, you know what I'm saying? Let's let them lay on the sofa, keep them away from everybody. Don't let them touch the remote, but they dropping off. I mean, you can't do that. And so that's the part, to your point, where you see the true value of that real village.
Absolutely. It's technology has been able to do a lot of things. So when we were on the West Coast, like I like the ability to do FaceTime and Google Hangouts and Skype calls, and my daughter to be able to see the faces of her grandmothers, even though she was not in the same city. That was very powerful. You know, technology has empowered a lot, but at the end of the day, you still cannot beat grandma being your neighbor. You cannot beat that. You can beat that.
Man, that's good stuff. So fellas, if you have the opportunity to foster and build on this relationship or the village that you have in place, don't miss out on that and don't lose sight of that. I know a lot of times we get into the notion of wanting to chase everything and go this way and go that way. And I'm all about exploration. I'm all about travel. I'm all about seeing the world and capitalizing on what you have and using that to impact the world. But don't lose sight of the village that you have around you. And again, I know we're recording this now and this will get released a little bit later, but just recently I lost my grandmother. And so,
sorry to hear, man.
Oh yeah. Appreciate you, brother. And the thing that's interesting about it, that was my last grandparent. And one of the things, and it's kind of like the end of an era, it's it's kind of like this whole notion of how things grow, develop, and change. And now my parents are in essence the elders, in my my whole lineage. And it was a little challenging, and it makes me very reflective. We talked about looking back earlier, but one of the things that you also look at when you move away, the value that you had when everybody was right there. And so, fellas, if you have a village around you, no matter how long you're going to have that village with you, nurture that thing, build on that, encourage the growth and the development of the relationships within that village, because those are the things that'll set the framework for you and your kids as you go forward. So anyway, I know we got off down a rabbit hole, but it just felt that I felt the need for us to kind of dive into that, man.
Okay.
Word. So talking a little bit, you mentioned a little bit about your parents and the platform that they basically, or the environment that they created for you to grow and develop. Talk to us a little bit about your backstory, man, and kind of walk us up to, how you got to the point of where you now create this podcast called Successful While Parenting. Like, just kind of reverse engineer this whole thing. I know you're a tech guy, so reverse engineer the process and, get us to the initial thing, and then give us a minimal viable product of this, and then walk us. Anyway, talk to us about your backstory, brother.
So, I was born and raised in South Florida, a little city called Miramar, Florida, in between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And so I grew up there, went to school at UCF in Orlando, Florida. Met my wife there. I guess you could say typical college love story. And she's from Fort Valley, Georgia.
My dad graduated from Fort Valley State.
Oh, word.
Yeah. My dad.
I was like, if anybody knows.
Oh man, everybody do, man. Fort Valley. I got all kind of, friends, frat brothers, whatever. My godfather. All kind of my godmother. All these different people, and a lot of people from Augusta went to Fort Valley. So we know all about Fort Valley.
Okay, I typically say it, and people are like, okay. So
but dude, check this out. Where were you for the last 4 years? On the West Coast.
California. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So nobody in California knows about Fort Valley. That's what I'm saying.
No, even in Georgia, I swear.
Those are transplants. There is nobody. Because you see that. Okay. I'm sorry. We're going to divert a little bit here. Okay. I'm from Augusta, and I went to Georgia Tech, right? And so I went to Georgia Tech back in the late 90s and all. And so a lot of people from Atlanta at that point were still AT aliens. They were like actually from Atlanta. Fast forward 20 some odd years after starting college, you go back, the people you run into in Atlanta ain't AT aliens. They not from Atlanta. They not from Georgia. They from New York or California or Seattle or whatever. So, So if you run into anybody in the state of Georgia that does not know about Fort Valley, has never heard of Fort Valley, Georgia, they not native to the state of Georgia. Okay. Now go back to your story. So sorry, I had to interject.
My wife was from Fort Valley, and so we were together in school, and then I proposed after we both graduated from college. She went to med school at Morehouse in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so I followed. We lived here for 4 years, from 2011 to 2015. Then we did her residency out in California. Specifically in Santa Clara, the Bay Area. So we were there for 4 years. And like I said earlier, when we went out there, we had our first child, or our only child now, but we had our first child. And she was 3 months old. And
wow.
And eventually just between driving and commuting, it was like, let me listen to audiobooks. And then somebody was like, yeah, if you listen to audiobooks, you should listen to podcasts. And I was like, all right, I'll see. I don't know about people just talking like that. That's even weird to me. But then I started listening to it, and I got into it. There were so many different topics and things that I got interested in. And then I was like, I wonder if there's like one that I really got interested in is Tim Ferriss. And he talks a lot about help and how to improve yourself. And I was like, this is really good information. But as a parent, like what he's saying doesn't really apply. Being able to cut back on cost of things by having a roommate, that don't work.
No, not look, not with no sister as a wife. No, sir. Look, hey babe, I want to move somebody in to cut the cost down. She gonna be like, okay, they move in, I'm moving out, and the kids, we gone. I'm like, okay.
And you still paying for that rent wherever
And
we
you're
going.
still paying for wherever we're going, just so you know, player.
Hope you're saving a lot with that roommate. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like I was interested in that, and I was like, yeah. So what's out there was covering that space to where you as a parent have that ability to thrive as an individual. I was like, somebody. There's millions of podcasts out there. There's got to be one about this topic. There's got to be one about how you thrive as an individual, even though you are a parent. And I mean, and anybody that knows becoming a new parent, that shift is night and day, and it literally happens overnight.
Wow.
Literally. So just going from being somebody that's like you focus on just handling yourself and doing these things, so all of a sudden it feels like everything becomes about your child. You still got to take care of yourself. And so that is what drove me to saying, if there's no podcast out there, then I'll start my own.
Dude, hold on. And I'm gonna tell you what's fascinating about that when you mentioned the concept of, thriving as an individual while being a parent, right? But what's interesting, that's step 2. Step 1 is thriving as an individual while being a husband, right? And it's and so the whole concept is really kind of playing in my mind as you talk, and it's really fascinating, and we can dive into it a little bit more. It's just not losing yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not lose yourself in the minutia of life? Like, how do you not, lose who you are, lose your passions, your calling, your this, your that in the scope of this thing? But the other part of it is, I guess you juxtapose that to the notion of when you become married, you're supposed to leave your parents and cleave to your wife, and you become one. It's no longer I, it's we. And I wonder if that's a conversation that we societally need to have about, is it really all we and no longer I, or do we still need to have some level of I, because that level of I brought us together to become we. And when we suppress the I completely, that's when you start having resentment. And because when you mentioned that, dude, I thought about just the whole concept of, when, you had conversation, we got a lot of friends, contemporaries or whatever that are married, and, things that we struggle with ourselves. But the moment that you're no longer allowed, I'm using air quotes here, allowed to do something that you really enjoy doing, yes, you might have to put things on pause due to circumstances. But the moment that you're no longer allowed to do the thing that you really love doing, it gives you life, is the moment that you then start resenting that thing that took it away.
Yeah. I believe that wholeheartedly. Of at the end of the, what my favorite quote, this is my favorite quote.
Okay.
Especially for parents, is don't put on anybody else's face mask or air mask if the airplane starts to crash and the air mask drop. Don't put on somebody else's air mask first. You got to put yours on first.
Mm-hmm.
And so that applies here, which is, if you are not healthy, if you are not happy, how can you be happy with your family? How can you be healthy with your family? Like, and that's a lot of, and that's another thing that kind of like got me to this with the show, which is, we have so many martyr parents that feel like, I got to lay it all out for my kids. I got to do this. I got to work 3 jobs so they can get the Xbox and this, that. And it's like, no, you don't have to work 3 jobs for that. You got to change that mindset of saying, this is what you have to do in order for, like, no, you need to take care of yourself so that you can bring your best self to take care of you and your family.
Dude, it's like it's so real, because it's the concept of mindset, but then it's not living on someone else's terms.
Yeah.
Right. It's living on your own terms and living in a capacity in which you are specifically called to live. It's one of those things. We're dealing with a little something now with our 8-year-old little girl. And what's funny, you know, if like my little boy gets something or somebody else does something, then she'll hit me with, oh, well, that's not fair. Well, I got three cookies and he got four, or I got this and he got that. You know, I'm playing that she's doing this whole it's not fair thing. And she's starting to make sense of, you know, some things are for some people and some things are for others. And one of the things that I'm trying to get her to understand is that what's special for her is special for her. What's special for somebody else is special for somebody else. And you can't get yourself caught up in being jealous of or being envious of what someone else is getting at the moment, because the same thing that you're looking at for somebody else is looking at your life and saying, well, it's not fair that she gets to go to Italy, or it's not fair that she's gotten to do this or gotten to do that. And so to that point, we have to understand that what's special to us is special to us. And we have to own that, accept that, but also what's special for somebody else is special for them. And it does not mean that what's special for them is something that you personally need to have in your own life.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things about being able to appreciate what's special for us is gratitude.
Big time.
I think that's one thing that we as a society don't do enough. We get caught up, like you said, comparing ourselves and this person got this or this person got that. But we don't even recognize how much greatness and how many blessings we have around us in abundance.
Yes.
And we take it for granted. And the one way to combat taking these things for granted is gratitude and saying, what do I have to be grateful for today?
Absolutely.
You could go and also take it and have a negative mindset and make the list of what should I complain about today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I woke up this thing, or, oh, traffic is bad. Oh man, I let somebody borrow my car. They brought it back on E. Like, you could complain on and on and on and on, or you can flip that and say, what do I have to be grateful for? My child is healthy and alive today.
Absolutely.
Some people don't have that opportunity to say that. And like, just saying that alone is like, it changes your mind. And then you can go down and I got food this morning. I didn't have to worry. And because I'm so broke, I don't got food this morning. And so just being grateful. And then once you have that, you're like, you know what? I'm in a great spot. I'm in a great spot.
And, you know, and dude, I'm going to tell you, there's so much to that in regards to the concept of being grateful, being thankful, and understanding that things could be better, but they could also be worse. But at the end of the day, it's all about really being thankful for where you are, because if it's kind of like the concept of, you know, if you're faithful with the small things, that's when you get more, right? And so if you're happy with, you know, your little condo or your little house, or you're happy with, you know, this amount that you have, or you're happy with what you have, then you're opening yourself up to be able to properly handle more. Because a lot of times we want more, but we're not in a position in which we can effectively handle more, right? You know what? I mean, you understand this with business and everything. You know, what's one of the worst things that can happen to a lot of businesses is getting too much business too fast, because you can't handle it. You're not effective. Yeah, you don't have the system in place to handle it. And so learn how to deal with what you have, but be grateful. I think how you approach everything matters. So
and I mean, I think if I sum that up with what you just said, it's be content with where you are, but still aspire to have more.
If more is needed, because the other part of it is when you really, and this is that concept when we talked earlier about being retrospective, but then also being very introspective. You know, when you talk to folks, a lot of people throw arbitrary stuff out there and they've really not thought about it, right? So for instance, you think about goals. Like, a lot of people have financial goals. Everybody's, I want to be a millionaire by 40, or I want to be, you know, worth 10 million by 50. And I want this and I want that. They throw all these arbitrary numbers, and then I'm listening to them. But then I sit down and ask, so what is it that you want to do with your life? And then somebody who wants to be worth, you know, 8 figures or whatever, but then they tell me that, well, man, I just want to live in a nice neighborhood. I want to take my family on vacation every year. I want to send my kids to college debt-free. I want to leave a little inheritance to the kids. And, you know, I want to impact the world using my gifts. And I want to be fulfilled every day, and yada, yada, yada. They list all these things out, the specifics that they're actually wanting to do that really are drivers for them. And when they actually do that, you start to reverse engineer the process, and you look at it financially. It's like, dude, what you're talking about, if you made 75 grand a year, you're actually spot on with what it is you're wanting to really do. So you're stressing yourself out on, I got to make 6 figures a month, which is cool. It's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with that, because that might be where it is you're trying to go. But the reality is, for what you're talking about, you can make 1/10 of what you're talking about and really live that life and be fulfilled every day.
Yeah. And actually, I used the wrong word when I said have more.
Okay.
But no, it's being content and being thankful for where you are, but also looking to be more.
Yeah, I like that.
And whatever B is for you, but always having goals, something that makes you get up, because the world always has opportunities for us and challenges that we can work on to make it a better world. So always have goals, but also be thankful for your current situation.
And I think the concept of goals too, though, is, if you really think about it, nothing stays flat, right? It's either improving or it's declining. It's like, even with life, I mean, the more we live, the closer we are to the end. I mean, that's just complete reality, right?
Yeah.
And I thought about something. This is kind of a little geek out moment. I thought about something one day, and the whole concept of how everything is constantly moving. So sometimes when we're still, we're sitting there and we feel like everything is chill. We're like, you know what? Nothing is moving. Everything is just constant. Nothing is moving. But then when you look at it from a scientific perspective, the world is rotating at roughly 1,000 miles per hour. So even when you're still, the world is rotating at roughly 1,000 miles per hour. The circumference is roughly 24,000 miles, and it rotates one full time in a day. It roughly rotates 1,000 miles per hour. So even when you're still, you're moving. Things are always moving. So you got to have goals. Nothing stays flat. But if you take it even further, another geek out moment, the revolution around the sun. The Earth is actually revolving around the sun at a speed of roughly 64,000 miles per hour. So we think that we're still, we think that we're flat, we think that everything is constant, but whether we think we're constant or not, we're constantly moving. So you're either growing or you're declining. So from a goal perspective, we always need to be setting that, that line or that North Star out there, so that we keep ourselves in an upward trajectory, because at the end of the day, nothing is flat. Yep. So I don't know. That was a geek moment. Maybe, you're a tech person, so I figured maybe you could understand and kind of geek out with me.
You saw the smiles, man. I was right there. I was right there with you.
Nah, that's what's up, man. And so that led to the inspiration behind you creating Successful While Parenting, the podcast. And that's currently available on all podcast listening platforms and all of that, correct?
Yep.
Gotcha. Yep. SWP, Successful While Parenting podcast. We'll get the contact info for that a little later. But make sure, fellas, to check out and subscribe to Successful While Parenting podcast on your favorite podcast listening app. But what I really wanted to dive into today was, and this really piqued my interest when you and I connected a couple of months ago, was you talked about how, excuse me, after your wife was finishing her residency, and before you all made your move to, your final destination, you all were going to take a 2-month sabbatical / vacation to Asia and take your 4-year-old little girl. So you all literally took 2 months and just said deuces in between moving, and y'all went to Southeast Asia. Brother, talk about the inspiration, talk about that journey, and talk about some of the experiences, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could be here for 2 months just talking about the trip. Like, it was a lot learned, so much enjoyed, and so many experiences that are just like out of this world. Mm-hmm. What inspired all of this was a mix of what I learned from Tim Ferriss and also what they call the F.I.R.E community, which is financial independence and retiring early.
Okay.
And those two things, Tim Ferriss has the book, The 4-Hour Workweek.
Absolutely. I love it. It's one of my favorite books, man.
And it was just like, hey, instead of trying to like work so hard for 30 years and you throw away all of your life, your peak health.
Absolutely.
Why not go on for retirement in your 60s and you're going to do whatever? Why not go ahead and have mini retirements up until then? And so that just had me thinking, like, that's kind of interesting. And also something else that got me up to this idea is I feel like we should take more vacations to take care of ourselves.
Self-care.
we have so many people that are sick. We miss out on so many things with our kids, which causes us to stress. We can't do things for family, all because we have to work.
Mm.
And I feel like it's something that I feel like is like makes sense in my mind, which is just like, why are we working more than 32 hours a week?
Mm.
Like back in the days when you had to work on the farm and till the land and all this stuff, and like it was grab it up, use it or lose it out on the
Mm-hmm.
farm, and you had to work from sunrise to sunset.
Mm-hmm.
That made sense. We're not living that life now. We have all of these things, all of these advances that have happened have been for us to live easier lives and enjoy life more.
Ooh, but we don't.
But we don't.
Wow.
We say, oh, I'm gonna get this other thing, and this is gonna help me, or I'm gonna get a car, and it's gonna help me save time getting from point A to point B, and then I can spend more time with family. But what it does is it doesn't open up more time for us with family. It just makes us think of, oh yeah, well, I could also go to point C. And then there's D, E, F, and then we just go on, and then lose track of why we even wanted to make that advancement.
Ooh, hold on. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you where. I'm gonna tell you where I'm going right there, because it really stuck. It's something simple that you kind of glossed over, and it was actually embedded in a sentence that you mentioned. You said lose track of why.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. We lose track of why. Again, the why. Once you understand why, then you can effectively apply. Your why is your North Star. Your why is your purpose. Your why is that fire inside of you, that divine inspiration, that thing that drives you day in and day out.
Yep.
You lose track of why. And when you lose track of why, that means you're distracted from why. Then all these other things start to distract you, which we all know. Again, you're in the tech industry. You know all these technical devices and everything. Everything is designed to distract you. It's designed to capture attention. It's designed to give you a hit of dopamine so that you stay there. Because then, what is it? Then you have the ARPU, the average revenue per user, because they can jack that up because you're spending more time on that particular app. So it's like, if you don't have your why in check, if you lose track of your why, you're easily distracted, which I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to, yeah.
Nobody's invincible.
Yeah, dude, check this out. Like you pull your phone out, I'm about to send an email, and then something pops up, a DM or whatever, and then you blink, and 2 hours later, you're like, I'll be damned. I was supposed to be sending this email.
and I do what you came for.
No, I done watched 4 YouTube videos. I done shot 3 or 4 DMs. I done, made some posts and posted them. And I'm like, I was supposed to send this email 2 hours ago, and now it's time to pick the kids up. I'm like, doggone it. So it's anyway. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to deviate too much from there, but lose track of why. So anyway, your inspiration for Asia.
Yeah. So just having those inspirations and being able to say, my why is being able to enjoy time with family. The biggest thing, like you were mentioning with the financial goals, our financial goal, be debt free by, what was it, five years from 20, so I think 2022, 2023, get rid of all of our debt.
Absolutely.
I think except the mortgage, but get rid of all of our debt. And then by 2027, be truly financially independent, which would mean I don't have to work. I'd have money in a index fund, and it's making me enough money that it would cover
living expenses.
My living expenses. And if I want to go to work, I'll go to work. If I want to do a project, I do a project. I want to open a business, I can. But the thing is, I have that freedom to do what I want. Or if I want to stay at home and take care of the family, I can do. I have the full freedom, and I can reclaim that. And so,
dude,
I know, that's the goal. 2027 is we are at that point. And so hold
on, right there, because I mean, you're just dropping so many bars, man. Just the concept of that goal, and I'm gonna tell you, it's completely in line with me. Like ultimately, and I just wrote this down, and it's sitting next to the bed because I wanted wifey to add something to it. But literally, that is one of the key components from a financial perspective for us, is to be at a place in which we have investment revenue or businesses or something that literally covers our living expenses. Like when you talk about full financial freedom, to me, that's what it's all about. You have some mechanism or some system that literally covers your living expenses and your lifestyle that does not require you to spend an exorbitant amount of time doing it. So you're not trading your time for dollars, but you got a system in place that generates dollars. Now, again, we're not talking about some woo-woo scenario where it's, they're telling you meet 12 friends and you do this and meet me at a coffee shop. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actual revenue, models or businesses. And because I 100% align with that. Like, that's my ultimate financial goal, is to have a system or his systems in place that cover our lifestyle so that we are completely financially free and independent to be wherever we want, locational independence as well.
Exactly. And that's the whole goal, financial freedom and independence, being able to really claim that and live the life that we want. So this Asia trip was our first, I'd say, like dipping our toe into that, what we want out of life. It was, this wasn't we planned this in 2 months. This was 2, if not 3, 3, maybe even like touching 4 or 3.5 at least years of thinking and planning. And my wife had been through 12 years of schooling, basically, after high school. So high school, then 4 years of undergrad, then 4 years of med school, then 4 years of residency.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a grind.
Boy, she's tired, boss. That's real.
And so it was also a great opportunity to be like, all right, well, look, this is a great chance for us to celebrate this occasion. And we were able to set it up. We also knew that we were going to be leaving the Bay Area. And so it was like, all right, well, one of the biggest things that people don't think about, because when you say, oh, vacation or going somewhere for a long time, people think it's so expensive. What's so expensive is paying rent in 2 places.
Absolutely.
So for us, we were at the end of our lease, and we were only paying for where we were at. We weren't paying for a house that was sitting vacant. So, and that's one of the tips that I learned and kind of opened up, was like, oh, that opens up a good bit of budget and lets us do some stuff. And Southeast Asia is a very affordable area. Most of them are developing nations. And so you can really enjoy a big trip, which we did, on a moderate budget.
So like, okay. And so when people talk about expensive versus inexpensive, or, that's all relative, right? Because some people will say like, oh man, these shoes I got were only $400. I'm like, yeah, dog, I ain't spent $400 on all the shoes in my closet combined, probably going back 10, 12 years. Right. And so, but then some people are like, they're geeking off the fact that, oh man, I got these new J's, man, I only paid $450 for them. I'm like, bruh, $450 for a pair of shoes? You're tripping. But anyway,
that's 2 car notes.
I know. Ooh, what you talking about? And so the whole concept of expensive or inexpensive is all relative. Can you give the brothers listening some context on, and you don't have to like say like what we paid, but you can kind of give us some context on what you mean by inexpensive. Like what would, like a hotel or a Airbnb, or what did food cost, or what were some of those expenses, when you traveled around some places in Southeast Asia?
So some of the places we got, with all your basic amenities of Wi-Fi, hot water, kitchen in the place, $30 a night.
Ooh.
Like there was a place that my wife had wanted for $40 a night, and I was like, man, that's expensive. Like, because there's so many different competing things to where you can find stuff that is $25 a night. Like you can find some amazing things, and like that's not the $25 a night motel. Like these are
Like Airbnb type places?
Airbnb, or even good hotels. Like we did a mix of both of them to get just the experience. And so it's possible, and that's for housing. For food, it depends, because Vietnam was way cheaper. I wouldn't say way, but it was cheaper than Thailand. And what did we spend for food? I can't even remember what we spent for food, and because we had to convert currency so many times.
I got you. So you're going from this is equivalent to 1.5 million so-and-sos, and this is $1. And I got you.
Yeah, we were dancing all back and forth. But yeah, I don't have the numbers off my head, but
housing. So but giving people a gauge there in regards to, you can get housing in a nice area in some of these places for 30, 40, $50 a night, which, I mean, honestly, in the U.S., I don't care where you are in the U.S., if you're getting a hotel room, you could be in the middle of nowhere with some drive-up outside entry motel. You're not going to get that for $50 a night. No. And that's like the place where you probably don't want to be. That's like last resort. That's fascinating.
They said 5 a night.
Yeah, like, whoa, okay, yeah. But that's interesting because, again, travel opens your mind to seeing what costs are, what values are, and to your point about this whole concept of, financial independence, retiring early, but then being able to live a really good life. You hear the concept of people becoming expats, right?
Yeah.
Just saying, we have actually, as a family friend of ours that when they grew up down in Augusta, that lived down the street, and one of the parents actually relocated to, I believe it's Merida. It's like it kind of in the Yucatan Peninsula, kind of near, not too far from Cancun, but she's an expat down in Mexico. And then you stop and you see that. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things, we didn't dive deep into it, but with financial independence, the way that you can speed it up is by checking your expenses. If you getting $400 shoes whenever they come out, it's going to be a while for you to save up and have that money coming in and being able to do all that. But if you're making different decisions, like we had the chance when we were thinking of the trip, we could do Europe. And I mean, one other part of me was like, Europe already got enough of money. Like, we need to go there.
Yeah.
My wife really wanted to go though, but it was just like, if we go to Europe, it goes from 8 weeks to like 4, because the cost of hotels, the cost of food, that budget we had shrinks drastically, and it changes things. And so it's just like, with financial freedom, it's not only do you have income that you got to think about, but you got to think about where are your expenses going at and what are you finding important. And I mean, that's not to say you have to be cheap to be financially independent. But
absolutely.
If you want to go to Paris and ball out, then cool. But you also got to remember
there's a cost to that.
Yeah, you can't go to Paris and ball out, have a Tesla, get every new J's, and live in a mansion, but you on a 6-figure salary alone. Like, you gotta make some trade-off somewhere.
It's about, and I think that's extremely important. I think we need to be mindful of that. And I think it kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the inspiration behind the creation of successful parenting, thriving as an individual, but not losing yourself. This whole notion of, as a parent, we tend to make trade-offs in which we put everybody and everything first aside from us, right? So we lose ourselves in the process. And so you mentioned this concept of trade-off. We can do everything. I'm using air quotes again. We can do everything, but the reality is, should we try to do everything? Yep. And you have to make decisions and choices. And so to your point, if you want to ball out with your clothes and your car and live in a big house, unless you are one of these folks that is just ridiculously wealthy where, money's not an object, you can't do that and, do extensive travel. On the flip side, if you want to do extensive travel, that might mean that, we're not going to buy the 6-bedroom house, and we're not going to have 2 Teslas in the driveway, and we're not going to do this and do that. We want to, funnel our resources to experiences, but you got to trade off. It's a choice.
Yeah. And I mean, and I mean, this is the thing. is even if you think money is not an object, like there's very few people that are in that position to just like literally spend money forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at different athletes that had that mindset that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I got all this money
Mm-hmm.
and I could do it. And then they end up homeless.
Mm-hmm. 75%. I think it's the statistics a couple of years ago where 75% of NFL players have some level of financial difficulty within 4 years of retirement. And you look, I think the NFL right now, the NFL league minimum, like if you make a roster, your league minimum is like close to 500 grand. Your league minimum. And so even if you only make that for 2 or 3 years,
Only.
yeah. But I'm just saying, even if you only make that from age 21 to 25, if you're smart about it, that's your jump off for the rest of your life. But the issue comes because I'm making 400 or 500. I'm living the lifestyle of someone making 400 or 500. And the challenge of like a professional athlete or someone who is doing something that is a very time limited type career or venture is that you can't necessarily predict that income for the next 20 or 30 years. Whereas maybe a physician, if you make 300 as a physician, you can project that at least I'll make that for the next 20 or 30 years, barring any major catastrophe. Or a lawyer or a business person or accountant, you can kind of project that. Whereas in this short time frame, you start building a lifestyle on that joint. And then it falls off because your ACL gone. And it's like, okay, player, how do we...
And I mean, it's not restrictive to athletes. Like you said, it can happen to anybody. My wife is a physician. She could end up in a debilitating car accident, and then it's like, well, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't plan and prepare for these types of things, then it would be catastrophic. But we know nothing is guaranteed in the future. Nothing.
Absolutely.
And so another motto that I live by is enjoy every day like it's going to be your last. Save your money like you're going to live forever. And so it's just this, look, you can think, don't go YOLO with your money, but enjoy it every day. But also you have to, and it's on you. As bad as I rail against like the education system for not giving everyone the proper tools for the right economic mindset, but it is on us to do it, because nobody wants to hear, oh, you were a doctor, you were a ball player, and now you broke, and I'm supposed to give you money now? Like, I don't want to hear it. So it's on every individual to be responsible with their money and figure out how to set themselves up for the future.
Set themselves up, but then also through the lens of who you are. So setting yourself up for the lifestyle that you are called to live, not what somebody else is doing, what you're called to live. And so, kind of like,
why.
That's right. Remember the why, because when you lose sight of your whys, when the stuff distracts you, and it kind of ties back into the concept of, Shaun and his wife and their little girl taking this 2-month sabbatical to Southeast Asia. On paper, somebody might look at it and say like, hold up, why not you all go and let her start practicing and get 5, 6, 7, 10 years in, and then maybe 10 years from now, that's something that you all can do. Or maybe at retirement, you can go and just, globetrot around the world 25 years from now. But you all said, I want to take these little mini retirements now, self-care. I want to embrace things. I want to give experiences to your little girl. Because think about that. She's been to multiple countries at 4 years old, had her passport stamped. Come on, how is that going to influence her worldview? I mean, that's what we do. We just took our kids to Rome, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that's so interesting about that is they're looking at travel as something that's just what we do, right? But they're also connecting with people from all parts of the world, speak all kinds of languages, have all kinds of experiences. They're feeling, seeing, tasting things from different perspectives. Their worldview is completely open and it's not limited to what they see in a book. So so therefore it goes back to, like you mentioned, it's on us. It's on us as dads to give these experiences to our kids so that they're not limited or boxed in by what's happening just in their neighborhood, because their neighborhood is a small microcosm of this whole 7.7 billion population thing called the earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, it changes. Oh, that's just the globe, and that's just the country Italy. I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you what it smelled like. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell you about the different ice creams they sell there. I could
Uh-huh.
tell you about the architecture.
Absolutely. Or touching a building that was built in 119 AD, or walking in where the gladiators walked in, or, hanging out on this spot where this so and so went. I mean, you're able to see it and say, like, wow, I've actually been there. And it just opens your mind to the perspectives. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, even so, I just created a photo album recently of the pictures from the trip. And I was like, I'm looking back and I was like, dang, we did that.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, we did that.
Mm.
Dang, we walked around with elephants. Like,
Wow.
and my daughter, like, sure, she's 4 years old. She may or may not remember these when she gets older. And that's fine. But that imprint is there.
Yes. Dude.
Like,
Ooh, check this out. That look, I was just listening to, I forgot what interview it was, but it was basically some type of like bioscientist or whatever. But long story short, they were talking about like our emotional and our psychological health, and how basically a lot of what we do as adults was formed in us between ages 0 and 7. So a lot of the experiences, even if you can't specifically recall, what was said, what was done, or specifically recall that experience that you had, but those experiences inform your DNA, and it form your gene expression, and inform how you then interact or do things later in life. And if we're honest about it, and we look at some of the scenarios that are going on right now in the world with various individuals, if we reverse engineer their lives to the point of those first 7 years, you'll probably see that kink in the chain that was probably the catalyst for some of this drama that's taking place now.
yeah. And I mean, I think one of my friends told me, he was like, hey, we were talking about this whole thing. And he was like, yeah, he agrees. And the whole thing is the counter argument,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, okay, so if I shouldn't take her on this trip because it's not going to leave an imprint, why do we do anything with kids from the age of 0 to 4 anyways?
Mm,
Nothing's going to matter. We shouldn't
mm,
teach them anything. They're not going to remember it. Like, no, there's different things that we don't even know how it all works,
absolutely.
but we know it leaves some type of a value, and it changes and defines who they are. And so that was one of the huge benefits of this trip. Was my daughter got to go around the world and meet people that don't speak the same language she does.
Mm,
And she got to see different worlds. She got to eat foods that are not available. She got to eat fruits that we don't even know exist.
mm.
Like, there's so many fruits over there. They have toys made by whatever the toy company is. And I was laughing. I was like, dude, if I came home with this fruit, somebody would be like, this is not a real fruit. This is somebody's made up fruit from a Dr. Seuss book or something. And it's like, no, that's real on the other side of the world. And my daughter knows that.
Look, she doesn't just know that, she's experienced it and she's tasted it.
Exactly.
That's even deeper.
Yeah. So it's yeah, man. That was one of the huge benefits of the trip, was that seeing her being able to enjoy it.
Mm. Now, where, and you said you Southeast Asia. So where exactly did you all go within Southeast Asia?
Yeah. So we spent about 4 weeks in Vietnam. The major cities we hit were Hanoi, Tom Kok, which is right outside Ninh Bình, then Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh. Then we did a week in Singapore, then a week in Tokyo, and then we finished up with, I think, like 4 weeks in Thailand, visiting Chiang Mai, Phuket, and Bangkok.
Mm. Now, of all of those places, which was the best and which was the worst, in your opinion?
So,
And why? Yeah, give me the why too.
I'm a start low and go up. So
Okay.
the one that I was meh about would have to be Singapore.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is
Uh,
that?
so it's very westernized.
Mm.
And one of the things I was looking forward to on this trip was being able to see and experience a culture completely different from mine.
Wow.
So it's very westernized. It's also pretty expensive.
Mm.
because it is westernized, and that whole hotels are $25 a night.
That don't go there.
Nope, don't fly.
It's like times 10.
Don't fly at all.
Uh-huh.
Regular prices.
Uh-huh.
And the culture was also very like consumerist, to where it was like and a lot of people know Singapore for the book and
Crazy Rich Asians. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
I
I didn't
saw it.
even see it. I knew
Yeah,
about it. I didn't
I
see
saw
it.
it.
But like I was walking down the street one day and I passed this furniture store and they had a Fendi rug.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute. You are literally walking on money. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not even like, oh, every rug is walking on money. Yeah. But like, I could throw away 20, even $200. A Fendi rug?
Yeah, you talking 20 grand, 20, 30, 40 grand.
And I was like, I'm all right, dude. Like, it's okay. And plus, it was also, I don't know the whole history of it,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing I picked up on was in the nicer jobs, you would see lighter skinned people.
Wow.
But if you would ride around in the working trucks, huddled up and crowded, were the darker skinned people. And I was like, that's
Interesting.
interesting. That's
Mm.
interesting.
Now, and see, I think to your point, that would be interesting to kind of dive into like the colonial history of Singapore and the alliances and allegiances. Because I don't know, were they like a British protectorate or something, or what was their, or do you not know?
I don't know the whole history.
Okay,
I don't know.
gotcha.
Like, honestly, we weren't supposed to go to Singapore.
Okay.
The
So how did y'all get there?
we were supposed to do Vietnam, a week in Tokyo, and then Thailand.
Okay.
And while we were there, we're like, hey, we actually got a little bit of extra money. We can take a trip to Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
And my big thing, I'm always, does it fit in the budget?
Yeah.
Like,
100%. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm like, I don't care what we do. If it can fit in the budget, we could ride in a rocket ship tomorrow. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't care what it is. As long as it fits in the budget, I'm good. 100%.
and so we were like, all right, well, we go to Singapore. So Singapore came as more of a surprise than anything else. But yeah, so we just took a flight, went out there and lived it.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool. There's different things that are cool about Singapore. There's their architecture is pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
They have I don't know what that building is, but it's like 3 towers and then like a ship looking thing at the top.
Yeah.
My wife said that was in the Crazy Rich Asians movie.
Yeah, that connect. It's like that thing that goes across it. It's kind of like, was it Atlantis? Kind of has one too, like in the Bahamas. That thing is like that. That it's like a bridge connecting 2 buildings or something.
Yeah. So I mean, it's magnificent to see it in person.
Mm-hmm.
They have, I forget what it's called. It's like a tree light show or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty dope. We loved it. My daughter loved it.
It's really clean too, isn't it? In like because don't they have the law where like you can get a fine for spitting or something like that?
I was trying to figure out.
Make sure. Hold on, you didn't test it, did you? You didn't start spitting to see if somebody's gonna come pull over. Now you didn't.
I have very little faith in this presidency to come save me.
Oh, dude! And look, and I think I remember, what was that? How long ago was that? Well, old boy got caned.
A$AP Rocky?
No, not A$AP Rocky. I'm talking about in Singapore. Remember, this was probably about 10, 12 years ago. It was like an American college student or tourist or something. He was like spray painting cars, and he got in trouble, and he ended up getting caned. I don't know if you remember. You remember that story? It was a huge story.
I feel like I remember it.
Yeah, and I think he ended up, and they were wanting the American people to save him, but literally he couldn't. He ended up having to get caned. Like that was part of their punishment or whatever. So,
man, when I am on foreign soil,
like, model citizen,
man, like I don't do much here anyways. But I'm not gonna go to your house. My feet in your couch like Rick James. Nah, bro.
It's your couch. This is your couch. I'm Rick James. Yeah.
Nope. Not me.
Not, hey, I feel you. And so you said, so Singapore was the one that was probably least impressive. What was the most impressive part of the trip to you, in your opinion?
This one is tough of having to pick one,
Okay.
but we fell in love with Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Really?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
that's northern Thailand, right? In that northern?
I don't even know the geography.
It's no. It's all the reason I hear Chiang Mai is like a lot. You know, you talk about like financial independence, retire early, and all of that. So when I first really started getting into podcasts and a lot of the YouTube videos and all of that years ago, a lot of these expats, like a lot of the
Yep.
folks who were kind of like the laptop warriors that
Thailand.
all that, they live in Thailand, and specifically a lot of them lived in Chiang Mai. And so that's why I heard. I mean, I've never been to Thailand before, but I've heard the name Chiang Mai. And they mentioned it because of it's really a huge expat community, super cheap. But yeah, but you give us your take on it because I've never been there.
So yeah, I think Thailand overall is expat central.
Okay.
One, because I have a friend that's out there, and we met up with him, and he was giving us the whole like all the history and stuff he knows and the politics, and so we were talking about everything. And Thailand as a culture is very accepting of outsiders. And another thing that's kind of interesting is like, you think of a lot of different countries that in their history, it's like you could pretty much think of a war with every country, but you can't think of no war with Thailand. Like Thailand has been very kind, and I don't know how they've like not been overtaken by someone else. I think what I've heard was their ability to, I don't want to say it. I'm trying to figure out another word, but trying to like work their way out of it and kind of like diplomatically avoid different things. So
they're basically Switzerland.
Probably.
Yeah, because people talk about like Switzerland is kind of like that, that neutral territory where it's like, okay, no wars, no this, no that. Like you come there for peace and go elsewhere, and then they're not in war with other people. And I don't know. That's what I don't know. I don't know the history on that, so don't quote me on it. But I've kind of heard in conversation the same thing about like Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't even think they're that neutral and abstinent. I think they've kind of been involved in different things, and I think they like slightly get involved with the person who's most likely to win. So have that faith. So that's what I've heard. I don't know the history.
Gotcha. So fellas, listening to this podcast, do some history and do some research on Thailand, and y'all get back with us. Shoot an email, blackfathersnow@gmail.com. Let me know what you learn, if you learn anything in regards to the history on that, because that would be interesting. I'd like to know, and I'll definitely share with my man Shaun. So anyway.
I'd love to know as well. So
so Chiang Mai, you really dug Chiang Mai.
Yeah. They is a very strong expat community all over Thailand, and there I felt like it was small and still true to Thailand, but still had enough of foreigners to feel, I don't know, it was like it was just a perfect mix of, it still had a strong independent culture, still had enough for me to feel comfortable as a Westerner.
Can we make this thing 100? Because I think you kind of beating around the bush a little bit. My perspective on what you really are trying to say is there was enough culture there for me to feel like I was in a foreign place, but they also had toilet paper and regular toilets for me to sit on.
Oh, I mean, that was a requirement for the whole trip.
See, look, let me tell you, the funny thing is like we laugh about that and we say things in ways that are kind of like covert and all of that. But the reality is you're just like, hold up, this is cool. I like the culture and all, but doggone it, I want me a toilet to sit on and I want some toilet paper. Because
that is not a given in all cultures. I found out the hard way that there are some cultures that don't use toilet tissue.
Don't use toilet tissue and don't have toilets. Like I know when we were in Tanzania, and we were going from Dar es Salaam to our safari, halfway there, we were stopping and basically like a little convenience store, gas station or whatever, kind of like a bathroom stop. And you walk in the bathroom and it's a hole in the ground. And there's a bucket over to the side full of water, and there's like a scoop. And that's it. And so I was just like, first off, I'm glad I didn't have to poo, because I'm gonna tell you, one of the things that it also helps you to do is it keeps you from overeating in a lot of these places, because you never want to be in a position where you're just like, I got to go and I got to drop a monster, because if there's just a hole in the ground, there's a bucket of water to the side, and there's a scoop that you're supposed to scoop the water out with. Personally, I don't know how to use it. I was looking on YouTube, like, how the hell do you use this thing, and how do you clean yourself? My thing is, how do you dry after? I mean, again,
you're supposed to use your hand.
Yeah, your left hand. Your left hand.
You know it. You know the story then.
Oh yeah, dude. And that's another thing. Like, you see, and I'm gonna tell you, it's crazy. Like, you'll peep game in some parts of the world, and you'll watch why when folks eat, they literally only use their right hand. Like, they'll almost keep their left hand down to the side or behind them. And and using your left hand in some cultures is considered to be nasty and rude and unclean. Yeah. And I even heard it was I was reading something about, I think it was one of the books I was reading. It was talking about how I think it was in an African country, how a king could not necessarily ascend to his position because he was left-handed. And because he was left-handed, he was considered to be unclean because what your left hand was used for. It was crazy. I mean, again, these are cultural nuances. Again, it's not right. It's not wrong. It's just different. And it's different from our norm. But that whole concept of toilets and toilet paper is real.
That's a necessity, man. My friend told me about it, and he was like, yeah, he went to a country like that and was staying with his friend and all this stuff. And like, they would eat with their hands. Like, they didn't even use forks and stuff. So everybody was eating with their right hand. But like, he was like, dog, after a while, I was carrying toilet tissue around. He was like, they would laugh at me, but it was like, I was like, bro, I'm right with you. Like, there's I can't even bring myself to think about.
Bruh, I'm gonna tell you, like, real talk, that was one of the things, like, before we went, now we had toilet paper in our backpacks and some wipes in our backpack, flushable wipes, so we had that stuff with us, because the reality is, and not just there, I mean, so even some places that you go to that are somewhat commercialized, when you get outside of your resort, and you go to the restroom, to your point, it might be a hole in the floor, and there's a very strong possibility there won't be toilet paper. And so that's kind of a travel tip, fellas. If you're going to a non-commercial, non-westernized location, take you some toilet paper and some flushable wipes and keep them in your backpack, because there's a strong possibility you're going to need them.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't need them, hey, that is one moment. It is better to have and not need.
Bruh. Woo.
To need and not have. Boy.
But it's funny. So when you said that about, like, they had culture, but then they still had some Western conveniences, we're always thinking Wi-Fi, and we're thinking, scenarios like that, somewhat some level of infrastructure. But when you're really getting down to the nitty gritty, you talking about toilets that you can actually put your bottom on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, that was it for me.
Uh-huh.
My wife always jokes about different things. I could live in the bush. Like, I could live very low maintenance. I gotta have my toilet paper. Like, I am serious. When I go back to, like, my wife will also say about everything except technology and toilet paper. I'm like, that's.
And look, ain't no one ply. We don't want none of this one ply mess with no grooves or nothing.
Hey, I need my cottonelle. I need that. I can't.
Oh, that is funny.
I can't with that.
Oh, my God.
So I mean, but like, I can live easily, but the different Western cultures that we did get to enjoy is the days where we didn't know what we wanted to eat, or if, like, we got tired of eating the local food, and you go to McDonald's. Mm-hmm. You go to get something familiar. The other thing about Thailand, a good number of people speak English. You go to different places, English ain't guaranteed. Like,
absolutely.
The American mindset is, yeah, everybody in the world speaks English, and it's their first language. No,
It's not.
that
That's
bubble
real.
can pop real quick. We went to Tokyo, and I was like, all right, Tokyo's huge. Their anime culture is big in the U.S. and like we influence them, so they got to speak English. We had used Google Translate 90% of the places we went to in Tokyo.
Wow.
And they speak Japanese and proudly and I mean English is what my friend that lives in Thailand told me. He was like, English is a great second language. It's a great commonality to mix everything. But at the end of the day, these people have their mother tongue first and foremost.
You know, and I think to your point, though, it's an American mindset that, and this is interesting, like as we travel and we connect with folks and, you know, we're sitting down with somebody from another country or in another part of the world or from another part of the world, and almost all of them speak 2, 3, even 4 languages fluently. I'm not talking about they got like Puedo ir el baño. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, it's more than just, you know, 4 or 5 catchphrases. It's like they can hold legit conversations in 3 to 4 or 5 languages. And what's interesting about that, that's like average people. That's not even talking about someone who is like super intellectually gifted. And so we always laugh. We go some other places in the world and the dumb folks speak 4 languages. Then we come to America and the valedictorians barely speak 1. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I divert just real quick.
Okay.
Like that's one of the things that's like been a pet peeve of mine, where we'll laugh at someone's accent and not recognize they can speak 2 languages.
Yeah, you know what? That's funny. You know, because we do laugh at that. Like, look at him ran. Him went over there. I mean, I'm like, but hold up. I can't say that in any other language, but I understood what he was saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to your point, that is a really valid point. Fellas, again, everything in life to me is about relationships, right? And the linchpin of every relationship is effective communication. And if you cannot effectively communicate with another person, another individual, another entity, there is almost 0 chance of you being able to develop any semblance of a relationship with them. So why is it that we have issues around the world with different people and all of that? We can't communicate. A lot of times we literally cannot freaking communicate. And if we learn how to communicate, for one, it opens us up to learning. We've got all these different neurons firing, so we grow and develop and mature and intellectually grow ourselves. But then on the flip side, we open ourselves up to building relationships outside of what we're used to, which allows us to grow. That's what it's all about.
Yep. And I mean, yeah, so Chiang Mai, I'll go back to that. Chiang Mai, we stumbled onto the night market, and it was really cool. And I don't know. I just loved it. There was so much there. They have a strong sense of their own culture without being washed out. Because I feel like a lot of different places, it either becomes so westernized, you basically feel like you're in an American city. But like Chiang Mai is so true to who they are. And it's a lot of stuff. And also one of the things that we got to do, and I think hands down was the highlight of the trip, was the elephant sanctuary.
Wow. Now talk about that. So what did you do there?
So we got there and you get to walk around with the elephants. And so contrary to common belief, also for anybody traveling to Thailand and like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna go play with the elephants and I'm gonna ride them. Riding them is not good. They're a much smaller elephant than the African elephant, and they're not meant to be ridden, and it's not good for the elephant. So, but if you go there, you can go ahead and they'll have elephant sanctuaries where they say that the elephants go to retire and you feed them and all the types of stuff. And we went out, we had the chance to put, they had like medicine balls. You had to like mash up all the stuff in this like mortar and pestle thing. And there's this big gooky, mushy mess you just mashed into a balls and you'd feed them. And then we'd have sugar canes. You got to feed them, and we'd walk down the path, took them to a mud bath.
Wow.
Gave them a mud bath, and then went down to the river and rinsed them off in the river. And I mean, and then there they would just play, and they'd splash water or do different things. Like it is an amazing like memory of like, I got to like be face to face with an elephant.
Now were these elephants, to your point, were they like former, domesticated elephants, or were these like orphans as babies that they just kind of have a sanctuary for them? Like, what was the history on those?
I don't recall. My wife would know, like many things.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, you married to a doctor. She know.
I don't recall, honestly.
Okay. That's fascinating. And so, and how did your daughter react to that experience?
So that was funny. So I thought, she loves going to the zoo. She loves seeing animals. I was like, she's going to love this. This is going to be like amazing. And she's just going to love it. And as you can tell by the story I'm building up, that was not the case. We got there and it had rained like the night before or something like that. Or no, it was raining actually when we came up. And so all the dirt paths that you typically would walk
are muddy.
Okay. And I mean, these are dirt paths. Like you could lose a shoe in this.
Okay.
That's how like muddy it was. And so my daughter was afraid of the elephants and was crying about that. Walking through the mud, she hated it. She didn't like it. She was going to slip. She was going to lose her shoe. And we had to keep our cool in that moment of like, yo, you are not about to ruin this lifetime experience for us.
I know.
Like, this is not going to be the way that this goes down and we remember this. Like, this is not going to be it. If you cry the whole time, that's going to be on you, kid.
Look, and check this out. See, that goes back to successful while parenting. How are we going to be successful in this journey, but we still going to parent in the process? Wow.
Yeah. So what we did was, and because like, that first thought of as a parent, like, oh, she's so uncomfortable. She's crying. She don't even want to do nothing. Should we stop? And I was like, hell no, I'm not getting this chance again. I'm not going to stop. You can make it through this. I'm not carrying you through the mud. You're going to walk. You have to do this. And I think she was afraid of slipping and she'd get hurt and all the stuff. So once she like slipped a little and saw like, oh, she wasn't going to get hurt, the tides changed. She was loving it. She was enjoying it. And she didn't mind trying almost slipping in the mud. She would laugh when me or my wife would slip. Like, so she started to change the tides of how she felt about it. And eventually I would go and the first thing we did with the elephant was the mud bath.
Okay.
And before that, she didn't want to feed him. She didn't want to get close to him. She didn't want to touch him. She didn't want to see him. But I got in and did the mud bath with the elephant. And then she was like, Mommy, I want to go bathe the elephant with Daddy. And then so she came and joined me. And then she got up close with the elephant and was doing all these things. And so all of it changed in that moment to where it was just like, come on, we're going to do this. This first step it's not convenient. It's not easy, but we're going to push through it. And she joined us with it being a very strong, very positive life experience.
Fellas, I hope you paid attention to what he just said right there, because that, when he talked about, his podcast, Successful While Parenting, that was a successful parenting moment. And one of the things that he mentioned that I want to really highlight, he said once she slipped and almost fell and realized that she wasn't going to get hurt, it was on. Let me repeat that again. Once she slipped and almost fell and realized that she wasn't going to get hurt, then it was on. Think about our role as fathers, as Black fathers, as Black men. Our job is to not necessarily, take all the blows for our kids, but we need to create an environment in which, yes, they're going to slip, but once they realize that if they slip and they don't fall, or if they do fall, they realize that, hey, I'm going to be okay, then they can realize that it's on. That's a life lesson. As parents, as fathers, as men, as Black men, We have to embody that ourselves. We have to give them the comfort, the environment, the flexibility, and the freedom to slip, to maybe even fall. But as fathers, to be there for them to know that, look, it's going to be okay. Because if they know that it's okay,
Yep.
It's going to be on.
Yep.
That's real, fellas. That was powerful, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I mean, and that's definitely a great point you pulled out. I didn't even think about, but yeah, definitely. And building up that comfort for the ability to embrace failure.
The ability to embrace failure and for them to realize that it's okay. Like, I mean, I don't even, whether it's success or it's failure, I think they need to know or have the comfort and the confidence as children that it's okay. And for so long or for so often, especially within our community, within the Black community, it's been such this opportunity of it's not going to be okay. It's not all right. So therefore, if I have built into my psyche that it's not all right, that it's not going to be okay, that I can't make it through, then what ends up happening is it's not okay. So therefore, the inverse to it being on, it's off. So therefore, I'm shutting it down and I'm just going to stay in my bubble.
Yep.
Fellas, parenting, successful while parenting is extremely important. But, and we mentioned initially about it being successful individually within the scope of being a parent or being a husband. But successful while parenting also applies to being a parent. We have to create and foster those environments. Make sure that if they do fall, they know that it's okay. Because at the end of the day, I always want my kids to feel like, to know, to believe that it's still on.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. So if folks wanted to kind of check in with you and follow you and connect with you and listen to Successful While Parenting podcast or anything else that you have going on, man, what's the best way for the fellas and ladies are listening to, because they always peek in our conversations. That's how they always stay ahead of the game on, I try to come with something. My wife be like, I know. I'm like, well, doggone it, man. I need to figure out what y'all are listening to so I can get the back end. But anyway, so how can the brothers, the ladies listening to, how can everybody kind of connect with you, listen to what you have going on and follow you, man?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook. Best way to follow me is probably on Facebook, Shaun Mosley. Typically there. Mm-hmm. And that's where I share like anything personal stuff. For the podcast, it's Successful While Parenting Podcast. The website is swppodcast.com. Mm-hmm. And you can see the latest episodes there. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm not too active socially. I it's that distraction that ends up getting in the way too much. So I try to balance all the little pieces.
Okay, so the best way for folks is Shaun Mosley on Facebook. We'll make sure to have a link in the show notes for that. And swppodcast.com. And that's where they can follow Successful While Parenting Podcast, get your links, your contact information, and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Awesome. Was there anything else that you'd like to share with the Black Fathers Now family before we wrap it up, brother?
Yeah, like I said, I could talk about this trip for 2 months. I think one of the things I want to talk about that I learned was, I guess kind of two things is the 2 months, it sounded great at first, but after a while, we actually started to get homesick to where we were like, man, we probably could have did this in 4-6 weeks and it would have been fine and we would have came back just in time. But another thing that I didn't think of until we were in it was like childcare.
Wow.
2 months with your kids. 2 months.
No break.
No break, no daycare, no none of that. So it's just like you don't get that intimate time with your spouse. You can't do nothing. If you're not buying Airbnb or something that has separate rooms, you don't have privacy.
Hold on, stop then. See that just lets you know, because we married brothers and we got needs. And so to that point, if you're going to Southeast Asia, you better get your behind an Airbnb with more than one bedroom so you can put them little ones in that other bedroom, close that door, and be grown folk. Okay, back to the story.
So yeah, so that was one thing we learned and would just say like, wow, if we could redo it, we would definitely rethink about childcare, whether that be bringing a grandma on the trip,
Mm.
or having a grandma come pick her up partway through something,
Mm-hmm.
something to figure out
Because
what
that's
we
a
would do
long
for
time.
us. It
Can,
was a long time.
can I tell you what's interesting about that? Like we last year we went to Mexico last year for
Mhm.
spring break with the kids, and my parents came along, which was really, really awesome because it allowed us to have some, some adult time as well. And then, my parents are like, okay, they want to kick it during the day, but nighttime they ready to lay it down so we can send the kids on and we can chill and be grown folk. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's an interesting thing. And going forward from a conception perspective, I would love as we grow up and our kids grow up and have kids of their own, I would love to be that grandparent that, if they want us to travel with the kids and their kids so that they can have those experiences. And we look forward to doing that now. So like when we go somewhere, we literally are calling parents like, hey, this is where we're planning on going. What y'all schedule look like? Y'all down to come and tag along?
You
And
about that life?
yeah, I'm about that life now, bro. Because the other part of it is like giving our parents, which is the kids' grandparents, that opportunity as well,
Yeah.
right? It's like those multi-generational trips. Culturally, Black folks ain't done that a lot, right? But I
Yeah.
used to always see like, some people from different backgrounds and all, they would, grandparents would take everybody to Disney World and it'd be like 2 or 3 generations all together at
All
Disney
together.
World.
Yeah.
We don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas that will be something to really institute going forward, these multi-generational trips.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that.
Mm.
And it's that added benefit too. You get
Yes.
the child care that we were missing, plus that imprint and that
Yes.
connection
Yes.
with some of the most essential family.
Yes. 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 I'm sorry. Again, I diverted because you said something that I was like, yo, let's put a pin in that. That was pretty cool. So you said that was something that you all learned. The whole
Yeah.
2 months was a long time, but then also the concept of childcare, especially with a long duration trip, the challenges that may face if you don't have that available.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something, and my wife was not comfortable at all. And I mean, I understand, not comfortable at all leaving our daughter with childcare in a foreign country.
Oh, I'm not. I would have a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, I would have a problem with that. I
Yeah.
know some people do it and they go and they hire the child care at hotels and the daycare down the street from their Airbnb. But especially with young,
Yeah.
maybe if they were like 10 or 12 or a little older, I might be a little more open to it because they could probably throw them things and handle themselves. But
Gotta teach them.
yeah, but I don't know about them young ones.
Yeah, no, and I mean I entirely understood it, but also being weeks without like anything, you just getting desperate. I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
don't know. That little Vietnamese dude over there looked like he'd be cool to just leave her with. Like cool.
Yeah, like, hey, man, come over here for a second, dude. I know you on your scooter and you're running people from, from the from the bar to the airport and all. But check this out. How much are you making over this next hour? Because I just need an hour. Just give me an hour, and you just park your scooter and just sit here with these little ones. All they need, look, you just turn your computer on. They just want to play games anyway. You just sit there.
It's sad.
You a trip,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
But I mean, yeah, that was it. And I mean, it was a lot. Like the other thing now that like the current struggle now is figuring out was like getting everything set. I totally underestimated how much we got to get handled, get situated, get car registration, all this. So that's the current challenge right now, working through, is still getting settled.
Well, and people, and just in case folks forgot in the midst, because we talked about a lot of different things on this. They were in transition. So when they were moving from California to Georgia, during that transition or in between, they took this 2-month sabbatical to Southeast Asia. And so when they came back from Southeast Asia and moved to this new location, they're having to get settled, get organized. And so he's talking about all of those things that he might have, that basically had to happen.
Oh yeah. And so dealing with that now, but I mean, it's all a learning, it's all learning, figuring out these different things. And again, it's going back to remembering the why.
Yes.
So the next time, if we have something like this, we have this experience to call back on.
The next time, not if. So the next time when we have this experience.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Well, fellas in the Black Fathers Now family, man, we got to welcome my man, Shaun Mosley, the creator of Successful While Parenting podcast, for coming on the show, sharing some insight, a lot of wisdom, a lot of inspiration, but a lot of things that you can really take action on now. And if you're not going to take action on, it'll at least cause you to think about something a little bit differently. And so I really want to thank you and acknowledge you for taking time to come and share with the brothers today. Somebody's life has changed today by hearing this conversation, right? If anything, they're going to know to just carry toilet paper with them if they're traveling somewhere, right?
Life lessons.
Life lessons. And look, they have been learned. Oh, my God.
Man, this has been an awesome opportunity. I'm glad to share, and I just love everything you do, man. Keep moving forward with this.
Most definitely, man. We're going to keep it rolling, man. And so, fellas, make sure to follow Shaun Mosley on Facebook. I'll have the information in the show notes, but then also visit swppodcast.com. And when you reach out to him, let him know you heard about him on Black Fathers Now. Show the brother some love. He's got some good stuff, some good insight, a lot of things you can learn from him. Reach out. And as always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Visit blackfathersnow.com. Make sure to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, any way you subscribe. Take this episode, share it. Anybody interested in travel, anybody interested in becoming a parent, who's already a parent, who's thinking about life and wants to just improve, share this episode, leave ratings, leave comments. We love that. It helps us to move up in the rankings so that we can then impact more people. And as always, until next time, fellas, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.
Peace.
All right.